Before you send your children abroad to go in search of greener pastures, listen to this tragic and interesting story of Eddie, which will be a lesson to all young girls and ladies like her. Eddie stood outside her family's home in Eket, Akwa Ibom State, clutching a small traveling bag as her parents exchanged hopeful glances. Her aunt, Auntie Imabong, dressed in clothes that looked too fancy for the village, stood beside her, a confident smile on her face. Behind them, a small crowd of neighbors and friends had gathered, curious and envious of the girl who was going abroad. Eka Imabong, we are grateful for this. Eddie's father said, his voice thick with emotion. Sending Eddie with you to Canada is more than we ever dreamed of. She will make us proud. Imabong flashed a warm, almost reassuring smile. Don't worry. Eddie will be just fine with me. There's opportunity in Canada, so much of it, and I will guide her to succeed. Soon you will be seeing her money coming in, and she will make all of us proud. Eddie's heart raced with excitement and a tinge of fear. Canada was a world away from anything she had ever known. Life in Eket was tough. Her father, a fisherman, struggled to make ends meet, and her mother's small vegetable stall at the market barely brought in enough. Eddie had watched her parents toil for years, their hands calloused, their face worn from hardship. She wanted to give them a better life and was grateful that Auntie Imabong had offered her a chance. When Eddie and Imabong arrived in Canada, Eddie felt overwhelmed by the size and rush of the city. The apartment Imabong took her to was spacious. Something about it felt cold, impersonal. She noticed other young women moving about in designer dresses, clicking away their phones, with expressions that were hard to read. Later that night, Imabong sat Eddie down. Eddie, there's something you need to understand about life here. Opportunities don't come in ways you might expect. I didn't bring you here to just do any kind of work. Here you will entertain men. The more clients you get, the more money you make, and the more you can send back to your parents. Eddie's heart dropped. She could barely process what Auntie Imabong was saying. Auntie, entertaining men? She stammered, her face turning pale. I don't understand. This isn't what I thought. Imabong's gaze turned cold and firm. Eddie, I know it is not what you expected, but this is the real world. You are here to make money. Look at your family home. Think about your struggles. You wanted help, right? Well, this is how you do it. Be smart and you'll be able to change their lives. A knot formed in Eddie's throat as she felt tears sting her eyes, but she forced herself to nod. She was in a strange country with no one else to turn to, and her heart broke as she thought of her parents. She could never tell them the truth. They would be shattered. So she wiped her tears and accepted her aunt's harsh terms. Over the next few weeks, Eddie did as Auntie Imabong instructed. She met men from various backgrounds, putting on a brave face and swallowing her pride. Every time she made money, she wired it back home. Her parents' joy over the phone brought a bittersweet comfort. Eddie, you're such a blessing to us. Eka Imabong is truly an angel. Her mother said, her voice filled with pride. Your father is always talking about how lucky we are. Eddie bit her lip, unable to tell her mother the truth. I'll keep working hard, Mama, she replied, her voice tight with the weight of her secrets. Imabong's business was infamous among the wealthy in the city. Eddie quickly became a popular choice. Night after night, she buried her pain, trying to convince herself that she was helping her family, but each encounter chipped away from her spirit. One evening, Imabong introduced her to a man named Chris Thompson. He was a prominent businessman, a CEO with a reputation in the city. He had specifically requested to meet her. As they walked to his hotel, Eddie prepared herself, masking her true emotions as he did always. But as they entered the room, Chris surprised her. Instead of moving closer, he gestured to a chair. "Please sit down, I just want to talk." Eddie blinked in surprise, hesitating. "Talk?" "Yes," Chris said kindly. "I am paying for your time, but I'd like to know about you and your story. You seem too young and too hot to be doing this." His words were gentle, filled with genuine curiosity. At that, something inside Eddie broke. She hadn't been asked how she felt, not since she had arrived, and the kindness in his eyes brought forth all the pain she had been hiding. Slowly she began to speak, telling him about her life in Eket, her parents, the hope she had carried, and how it all had been crushed under the weight of Imabong's plans. She spoke until her words tangled with tears, her heart pouring out all the sorrow she had bottled up. Chris listened in silence, his face grave. When she finished, he handed her a tissue. "Eddie, no one should have to live this way. You don't deserve this." "But what can I do?" Eddie's voice broke. "I have nowhere to go. No one here except her." Chris nodded thoughtfully, his gaze steady. "What if I help you get back to Nigeria? I could help you set up a business there, something you can truly make money from, and you will be proud of yourself. You deserve a fresh start." Eddie could hardly believe what he was offering. "But why would you help me?" Chris sighed. "Because I can see your strength, and no one should ever be forced into this. If you're willing, I will help you get out." In the following days, Eddie's life shifted dramatically. With Chris' assistance, she left Imabong's apartment, disappearing without a trace. She flew back to Nigeria, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation as she touched down in Uyo. A few days later, Chris arrived as well, determined to follow through on his promise. True to his word, he helped her establish a small boutique in Uyo, a business where she could sell fabrics and handcrafted jewelry. Eddie threw herself into the work, finally feeling a sense of purpose and pride in what she was building. Each day brought a renewed sense of freedom as she watched her shop grow. She found herself healing bit by bit. When her parents learned the full truth, they were heartbroken. Her father held her hands, his voice choked with emotion. "Eddie, my daughter, if we had known." His face was marked with grief and guilt. Eddie placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Papa, it is over now. I'm home, and that's what matters." Meanwhile, Chris worked with the authorities in Canada and Nigeria to file a formal complaint against Imabong's organization. With the evidence he gathered, the authorities launched a swift investigation exposing anti-Imabong's criminal activities. Eventually, she was deported back to Nigeria, where she was sentenced to prison for human trafficking and exploitation. Eddie's parents attended the court hearing, filled with a mix of anger and sadness as they listened to Imabong's crimes. Over time, Eddie's boutique flourished. She became known in Uyo for her skill, her bright spirit, and her resilience. Chris continued to visit her frequently, and their friendship blossomed into something deeper. He admired her strength, and she found in him a trust and warmth that felt like a new beginning. One evening, as they sat outside her boutique watching the sunset over Uyo, Chris turned to her. "Eddie, I'm grateful that fate brought us together. If you allow me, I'd like to be a part of this new life you are building." Eddie's heart swelled with gratitude and joy. For the first time, she felt free from the weight of her past as she looked into Chris' eyes. She knew she was starting a new chapter filled with hope, love, and a life of our own choosing. Like, follow and share for more interesting stories like this. Thank you. See you in my next video upload.